the culture that I create is based on how I lead myself. And so if I bring high support and high challenge, I liberate myself. And so often there's this counterintuitive thing where we have to learn to support and challenge ourselves. And it's really important that we have a plan for support and challenge. We have to know what our people need support and challenge wise. Even when we see high performers being able to attack, things really well, we still need to go, hey, what kind of support and challenge do they need from me today? It's sort of a weekly, daily, monthly, quarterly question that we need to be asking ourselves.
Hello, everybody. I'm Greg Tomchick. Welcome to the Connected Mindset Podcast, where each week we bring you the stories to better connect with the world around you. Let's dive into this week's podcast. Edy Herrera, welcome to the show.
Thanks, brother.
Absolutely. We're going to start today's show a little bit differently. Typically at the end of the show, we ask, what does connected mean to you? But I'm curious, what does a connected mindset mean to you?
Yeah. Recently, my wife has been going through a certification of sorts with Jamie Winship and Donna Winship, the Identity Exchange. And they have been putting, when you come across certain tools or concepts and you're like, doesn't everybody know this? Isn't this a kind of a universal truth? And that's when you have something very powerful and timely for that era, right? Or that season, that cultural season. And so they pretty much organized the idea of having a separate worldview or connected worldview, and mindsets come from those worldviews. And so a separate worldview, just to explain it, is when there's scarcity, it creates fear that there's not enough. Maybe you're not enough, or there's not enough in the company. There's not enough time, money, people. It creates certainty. And what I mean by that is it creates certainty that I'm right. And you're wrong, and everybody else is wrong. My way is the only right way. And then perfection, right? There's not this striving for excellence. There's this striving for perfection, which is, this from playing baseball. It is so difficult to achieve perfection, whereas, you can achieve excellence at a high level, and it still might not be perfection, right? And so, and then ultimately the idea is being for self. Like there's kind of this sense that out of that scarcity, out of that fear, out of that separate worldview comes this separation mindset, which juxtaposes almost, identically to the connection worldview, which creates a connected mindset, right? And so you have the sense that there is more than enough, that I am more than enough, that you are more than enough. It creates mystery, like there's a curiosity. We show up being interested versus interesting. Yeah. There is flexibility versus perfection. And then there's this sense that you are for others. Let me finish that thought with a definition, which is love is fighting for the highest good of others. It's just the reality of greater love there is none than he who gives his life for his friends, like this essence that we are to lay our living life down for our people. And you can sense when somebody loves you. I had recently had a friend of mine, I was telling him how I tanked. I tanked so bad in a setting with a bunch of men. And I was just, I pretty much was like, we're getting started, get your pens out. And it was like, oh, here comes the guru, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I was like, Danny, what did I do wrong? He goes, it's like, you didn't let them know that you love them. You didn't put that out there, And I was like, I should have said it. He's like, no, you shouldn't have said it. He's like, you have to do something to show people that you are for them, And so a connected worldview leads to a connected mindset. And today, as we get into it, I think it'll kind of weave its way through our conversation. But thanks for having me, Greg.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that the connected worldview versus the separated worldview is why we started this show. When I was going out and starting my business initially after baseball, identity crisis, all of the messiness in that is I thought I had to be against the world. I was separated from everything that once mattered to me. And I felt like I had to prove myself to myself and everybody around me, because as an athlete, you're never enough. You're always on that journey to become better. And your coaches are always saying, you can do this better, you can do that better. And I felt the most disconnected at that time because I wasn't I wasn't able to ask the questions to people around me to say, how are you connecting? Or what makes you feel connected? It was, I had to win and then I would feel connected. So it was that never enough mindset. And my intent was I would get that fulfillment through, doing more business or finding the next deal.
Yes.
And the deals were not going through because people could feel that I was separated from myself and then from a mission, because I was trying to fill a void, and they would never say it. And I didn't feel it. But until I started to ask the right questions and find ways to kind of get that connected worldview, that's when everything started to fall into place.
What changed? What was the cue ball, the what or the who that impacted you, that maybe painted a picture of being connected versus separate?
Yeah, it was definitely, I'm very observant. And from that introvert mindset, I had to see somebody else do it. I had to feel somebody else do it.
Yes.
Obviously, I was asking some of the right questions, but somebody early on in the business gave me an opportunity to do what I do best for their company. And as a result of that, I was able to see him be connected in his organization. And when it went deeper, I saw him connected in his own life, to his family, to his kids, to his community. And those layers started to add up. And I was like, wow, this example is something I need more of. And that to me was, the connected mindset, as I could, bring people on, connect with people, and have these type of deeper conversations, because I love to ask the deeper questions about life. And that not everybody loves to do that, especially in the business world, because we're busy. We're trying to get the next deal. We're trying to, achieve the next thing. And some people say, that's too deep for me today. Maybe we'll do it later, and later never comes.
So somebody modeled it for you. They
Absolutely.
took the time to show you. They told you what they were doing. And then they kind of broke it down for you. So you had a season of maybe being discipled or mentored. You're coming under somebody to actually see that happen. Man, that's awesome.
Yeah. It was critically important. And how did you find your difference between the connected worldview and the separated worldview? Was it experience? Was it
very similar to you?
Yeah.
Right. I came across a tool with the giant tools that we use. Jeremy and Steve created these tools, and they have this one tool. It's 2017. I'm sitting on the 17th floor of this hotel in Atlanta, overlooking the city. They pop up this question or this tool, and it's the self-preservation tool, and it had 3 questions. What am I trying to prove? What am I trying to not to lose, right? And what am I trying to hide? And it was the moment where I just felt this, like somebody had seen me. And those 3 questions applied to me heavily. I had so much self-preservation. I had so much to prove to my dad, who was passing away in 2017, to some of my bosses, to some of the people who had mentored me, to the people that I had left back in my hometown of Ridgeway, Martinsville, Virginia. Like, I just had so much to prove to myself. And it left me with an incredible separation worldview. It left me with a false identity, because in every space that I was in, I was trying to prove that I could go deep. I was trying to prove that I was a friend. I was trying to prove my worth, because internally I had this sense of I'm not enough, And then, something to lose, something to hide. Maybe we're less powerful for me, but we could go into it. But probably there's something to prove, something we have in common. There was just this essence of this. I was thinking of the word as you were talking, kind of an insatiable performance, that nothing was ever good enough. Even when I put out excellence, it wasn't perfection. And so I ended up not celebrating those wins, right? It's hard to celebrate sometimes. I'll focus on the 10% that hasn't been achieved rather than the 90% that has been achieved.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
When you think about self-preservation, is it keeping yourself intact, or is it elevating the true version of yourself in a way that best serves you, and so you can go serve the outside
I think
world?
Self-preservation just leads to you being for yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know about your experience as you were trying to prove yourself in baseball or in business. How did it land for you? Were did you feel like you were able to be for others while you were self-preserved trying to prove yourself? Or did you often try to loop things back to your own wins and your own success or your own?
Yeah, I felt extremely torn between the two. It's, a lot of people say when you're going through hard things, just go serve others.
Yes.
And I realized that I was doing great in the outside world, but I was distracting myself from what I needed to confront internally.
As you're in that headspace or hard space, and I'll share too, what was your fear? What was your greatest fear through that season?
Yeah, not being enough or proving my enemies or doubters right. It was, I had things I felt I didn't want to lose. I didn't want to lose reputation, or I didn't want to lose my status in the game or status in business.
Yes. I work with a lot of leaders, and I would say, not to put a percentage, but most of the time, that phrase comes up, I am not enough. Yeah. And that is where we need to identify where that comes from, which is a false identity versus a true identity, right? So if out of a separation worldview that creates fear, I end up with a false identity, all right? Out of a connected worldview that creates a connected mindset, I ended up with my true identity. But that comes from doing the hard work of letting God speak to you of how you were created, right? That he would let you know what your identity is. I actually, most of my clients, the work that I do, there's a lot of the faith is allowed into what I do, just because it's like, do you want to work on the symptoms, or do you want to work on the real work? And so often I'm like, hey, let's ask a couple of questions. God, who do you say that I am? And that ultimately leads to this place of being able to operate out of that, right? A connected worldview, because I know who I am. I'll tell you, for me, and it's got very little biblical verbiage around it. I realized that I was a trash picker-upper, and I was at a banquet, and I was volunteering for the banquet, and I'm cleaning up all the trash, and kind of a prominent leader in our area was watching me from the back. I didn't know who he was. And as people are finishing their food, they'd set their plate down, almost set it down, and I'd be already grabbing their trash and throwing it into the bucket, because everything's a game for me. As somebody who grew up playing football, and I'm a gamer, you know what I mean? And so, and you are too. So everything becomes like a competition. So I'm picking up all this trash, and I am almost entertaining the crowd with my trash picking up, and he goes, "You're really good at that." He as I was in the back resting, and I was like, "Yeah, it's my calling, to be a trash picker upper." That followed by the fact that I started to realize that I love finding treasures in people. I love discovering. One of the questions I'd ask you off camera more seriously is like, "Hey, what were you created to do? What's your purpose?" I'd even ask you now, right? And that's treasure finding. And for me, trash picking up plus treasure finding equals gift giving. Like my desire is, and that's who I am, right? My identity in this world, right? Who I was created to be is just a gift give. Now I work with people who are like, hey man, don't come at me with some Jesus Bible stuff. That's fine. Let's still figure out what you were created to do. Who are you? And man, even without a heavy sense of scripture, sometimes just having this normal conversation, we arrive at who they are. And you can sense people's shift internally as they encounter their identity, right? They don't know the who put that there, but they know the what is there that has to come out into the world.
Man, how can somebody start to find that? Because I think a lot of us try to be everything for everyone, and that I think is just a path to demise for a lot of people. And I know a lot of people, because I have the show, and because one of my gifts is, and one of the things I work on continuously is trying to get clarity internally, so I can bring that externally. And I know a lot of people are asking themselves, like, who has God created me to be, or what does the world need me to be? Why me? What for me? Where can folks start to find that?
Everything begins with knowing yourself to lead yourself, with this self-awareness. And what we have figured out is that we can take people through a process, of what it looks like to identify how they're geared. the Myers-Briggs for me has been a really easy, but also almost like 10,000 feet in depth way to identify people's gearing. But when you type people, it's hard to lead them. When you label people, it's hard to lead them, and it's hard to lead yourself. We use typologies as a way to label, and I want to just flip that and go, a typology is only there so that people can know themselves better and how they lead themselves better in others. It wasn't supposed to be a label that allows us to gloss over or ignore people. We have to have typologies with a connected mindset. And so let's say if you're introverted or extroverted, you have to be able to understand how you recharge. This is helpful because if I'm operating out of my identity, but I'm trying to do it like an extrovert, it has a timeline that it'll fail. Or I have to understand if I am really present and practical, or if I'm intuitive and future-oriented, right? The present being the sensory people, or the future-oriented people being the intuitives. You have to know whether you're a feeler and make decisions based on people, principles, and values, or whether you're a thinker and you make decisions based on logic and systems. Well, up until this point, you have people who are literally thinking that we have let's say you're a thinker and I'm a feeler, which you're probably a feeler, but you know what I mean? Like so let's say you're a thinker, I'm a feeler. And I'll give you an even better example. My mom married, she's a feeler. She's a practical, she's a nurturer. She's a sensory, practical, extroverted feeler who loves people. She's a shepherd, man. She is a caregiver, taker, all the things, right, of people. And she married a man who is introverted, intuitive, future-oriented, strategic, logical. They think that their character is at odds with each other. Literally, he thinks she has character flaws, and she thinks he has character flaws. Now, do we all have character flaws? Yes, but they think their personality is a character flaw, right? And so we create a tribe where we're like, only nurturers are good people. No, like we need the nurturers, we need the pioneers, right? We need the future-oriented people. And then ultimately, the last thing is, whether you're a perceiver or a judgmental, and it's the idea of how organized we go about our life. I do some of my best work under pressure. I'm speaking at a conference this weekend, and the thoughts are all there, but it'll come together real well at the airport the day before, because I'll have all of my mind cleared for what's coming, and I'll have done all of my life research up until that moment. But it won't be on paper. Now, that's because I'm a perceiver. But a judgmental person will be like, that thing was done 3 weeks ago, haven't thought about it since, we'll bust it out, we'll dust it off, we'll be ready to go. And that's okay. Both of us have a different way of going about that style, that gifting. Well, when we know ourselves to lead ourselves, it creates this almost like these steps towards going, who was I created to be? But I have to understand how I'm geared first. I think that one can come before the other, but it helps. If you're looking for a roadmap, it helps to know yourself. And so what we did is we took the Myers-Briggs and the Giant Tools essentially did a 1-for-1 with the 5 voices. Do you know what your Myers-Briggs is by any chance?
INFJ.
INFJ?
Yeah.
Amazing. So for us, you would be a creative connector pioneer, right? And as a creative, you and I are, the only difference between you and I is you're an INFJ, I'm an INFP, right? So you're going to go about your life in a more methodical way. You look at my life, you're going to be like, if I work for you, you're going to be like, Edy, maybe stinks our organization. Little do you know that I do some of my best work in the last 3 hours, 3 days, 3 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So anyways.
Interesting.
Yeah. Any questions on that, or what does that lead you towards?
Yeah. I like how you said, sensory, perceiver. I think all of those, the words help tell the story.
Yes.
The concepts help tell the narrative.
Yes.
And it helps you. I think that helps people have more faith in their connected worldview.
Yes.
I think that's so important. But oftentimes we don't get the concepts. We get the labels. I don't really want to label myself because I feel like I'm on the on the verge of the two.
Because in the labels they want to operate out of separation.
Yeah, exactly.
Rather than going, hey, this type that you are simply allows me to lead myself better around you, and it allows me to speak to you the way you want to be treated. Yeah. So what we ended up doing is, for a long time, we operated out of the golden rule, which is I want you to treat me the way I want to be treated. Yeah. But that doesn't work. Yeah. I mean, what if I grew up You and I are kind of an anomaly, but I grew up with like really hard coaches who yell and scream. And as long as they knew they were for me, I was good with the yelling and screaming. But what if I operate out of that for people, and I yell and scream and I'm like, I'm for you, right? And they're like, no, I don't like to be yelled and screamed at. The golden rule doesn't work, For the most part, you shouldn't yell and scream. But there's a lot of versions of that, right? And so it's really important to go, hey, what does it look like to treat you platinum rule, which is I learn you, I learn your story, I learn your nature, nurture, and choice, right? So your nature is your personality, your nurture is your story, all of your oughts and shoulds, and then which is faith, religion, all that, and then your choices, the choices that you made as an outcome of nature and nurture, right? And so if I treat you according to that, then you're going to be seen, and you're going to feel like you have a tailor-fit leadership that's coming your way. When I experience that from leaders, it's the highest. Some of the highest level leaders are tailor-fitting. They're tailor-fitting their leadership towards me, and I can sense that they're doing it. And even if they're being very intentional and conscious about it, I still appreciate it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I love the concept being, people attached to leaders that they know are for them, but oftentimes people are not for themselves. And I hear that a lot is, I don't really know what I want. How can I be led if the person doesn't know what I want, if I don't know what I want? So being for yourself, I think that's a process of that self-awareness.
The responsibility is yours as a leader, though. Yeah. I mean, honestly, even if people don't know themselves, and often they'll walk through the doors, we'll make them take an assessment, right? Some of the executives that I'm working with know so much about the people that just walk through the door because they know their Myers-Briggs, or they know their voice, right? That person's a guardian. They're present and they're logical. Nurture, present, and they're feelers, right? Yeah. Creative, they're future and they are feelers. Or pioneers, they are future and they're thinkers, right? Connectors, they're future and they're feelers, but they're extroverted, right? Yeah. So there's these 5 types of people: the nurturer, the connector, creative, guardian, pioneer. These 5 voices, when they walk through the door, we as leaders know a lot about the people coming through. It's our job to develop people, right? So often organizations have an incredible business model, incredible financial model, which allows them to, honestly, they're able to afford you, right? Yeah, right. Or me. Yeah. But then they're like, well, but in my case, they don't have a people model sometimes. I'm like, to the degree that they have journeymen and a process for people to develop and grow and become project managers and so forth, senior directors, we don't have a process like that for people. But when we do, it's because we've learned that we have to know ourselves to lead ourselves, and we have to know our people to lead our people. So we need processes and systems for that. We can take all those soft skills and create a system out of it, a people system.
Hey everyone, this episode is sponsored by my company, Valor Cybersecurity, where we help defense contractors navigate the uncharted waters of cybersecurity compliance. As a cyber attack victim myself, I know the impact that this plays in people's lives, and at Valor, we solve that each and every day. If you're a defense contractor feeling frustrated and confused when it comes to cybersecurity compliance, visit valor-cybersecurity.com, take our free assessment, and get started on your journey to clarity in cybersecurity. Yeah, that doesn't happen enough. You have process systems, you have procedures, you have all the things that develop business.
Yes.
And now more than ever, with people leaving companies after a year, 2 years, you don't have that 20-year longevity, seniority in companies really anymore. Yeah. And that, I think, comes down to the people's systems have been in question. Because, traditionally when I was first getting into business, the best leaders would treat everybody a little bit differently based off of those traits. And that was just their inherent ability to be a great leader. But on average, it was treat everybody the same. And then the ones that don't align with this, get weeded out. And
yes.
I've found myself, even though I knew it through baseball, because I would treat everybody a little bit differently based off of things I would notice and I would be aware. But when I went into business, it was like, I need to treat everybody like I want to be treated, which is like, I want to have, the biggest challenge. I want to be given every opportunity to grow. I want to be poured into. I want to know all the lessons. And that didn't work for a lot of people. It burnt out.
Yes.
Early on, we had extremely high turnover because it burnt people out. They didn't want all the opportunities. They wanted one opportunity to focus on and to run with. And then they maybe wanted more nurturing. And I was more of I'm going to give you every opportunity and go do it how you want to do it. And then, let me know if you have any questions and bring it back to me. And it didn't work for a majority of the people that were on our team.
You just built something out for me. You said most of the time leaders essentially started out treating everybody the same. Yeah. The way you saw people treating everybody the same. Mm-hmm. It is the phrase, if I can't do it for you, I'm not going to do it for anybody else. And it's like, okay. And then the second you're like, okay, so I'm going to be intentional and now I'm a leader. And so I'm going to treat people the way I want to be treated. And you're like, that rots out over time. Yeah. Okay. And then you're like, and then eventually now we're at this platinum, right? So sameness, gold, and now the platinum rule, which would be, I want to treat people the way they want to be treated, right? I'm looking forward to being in this conversation on your podcast 10 years from now and be like, we discovered an even better one, right? Yeah. But I feel like as we have been putting in the time as a culture and people are building out people systems, this is the level at which we're at right now, right? Is we're at the platinum level. Right? What's better? Yeah. I mean, the diamond level, whatever that is, right? Diamond, just the future orientedness in me is like, what is next? I want to know, right? Yeah.
Wow. What does culture mean to you? So we have different levels of culture. Obviously, we have our family culture, we have culture in companies, we have culture in communities.
Yeah.
What's the root of good culture? I think companies talk about it all the time. Like, we want a great culture. We want a great culture. Yeah. Maybe they're not putting in the time to build that culture. Mm-hmm. Does your culture at home, in the community, in your business need to be the same to be that kind of that word authentic? Or
we're not about sameness. That's the bottom level.
Yeah,
I think it has to do with the support and challenge that you bring at every circle. So let me encompass as many circles as possible, and then let me set up what leading yourself in each one of those spaces looks like. Right. So you have self. Let's do it like a champagne pyramid at a wedding, right? So let's just say that you at the very top are the top little champagne glass. So that's self. And then the champagne glass sits on like 5 to 7 glass cups below it. That's your family. Because you got to throw your mom or your sister or somebody in there, right? But then you have your family, and then you have your team. And let's say that team is, a bigger circle. Then you have your organization, and then you have your community. Right? A community can really encompass like church, car club, hunting club, whatever. And so the culture that I create is based on how I lead myself. And so if I bring high support and high challenge, I liberate myself. Now, I do bring high support and high challenge when I'm operating out of my true identity of being a gift giver. And man, I'll sit here sometimes and pray, and I'm like, Lord, I really want to give really big gifts. I was like, which means you got to give me a lot. It's got to pass through, right? Yeah. But there's just this essence of like, I bring support and challenge. But up to this point, operating out of my false identity of not being good enough, I would dominate myself, which means I would bring tons of challenge, very little support. When you drink real heavy and you're hungover the next day, you're dominating yourself. Yeah. When you drink real heavy and wake up hungover and then go for a 10-mile run, you're also dominating yourself, right? Yeah. The reality is, what does it look like for us to make healthy choices and actually learn to lead ourselves in a way that's both supportive and challenging? When I've had the experience recently of being in conversations with women recently, they're like, hey, I have a health coach. I'm like, that's amazing. Teach me what's going on. And you're like, well, sometimes what I've been doing is I've been over exercising, rising my cortisol levels. And I pretty much have like all this cortisol weight, Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's crazy. So you're saying the more you work out, the harder you go, the more you are keeping, you're not reaching your goals. I'm like, she's like, yeah, because they're dominating themselves. And so often there's this counterintuitive thing where we have to learn to support and challenge ourselves. And it's really important that we have a plan for support and challenge. Now, the opposite, right, of high support, high challenge is two different things, which is high support and low challenge, which is I'm going to watch TV late into the night. You still feel hungover in the morning. You know what I mean? I'm going to overeat at night, or I'm going to over support myself over care for myself without bringing in enough challenge, versus domination, which we know really well. And then you have no support, no challenge, which is when you finally just have abdicated yourself altogether. Now, this, just to end on the positive note, the goal is, what does it look like to have a plan for you where you're like, this is the list of how I'm going to support and challenge myself. So important. We're coming up on New Year's resolutions and all that. But what if what if they weren't New Year's resolutions? What if they were like before Halloween resolutions that we actually would sit down and go, what is my plan for supporting and challenging myself? The reality is the makeup of our leadership, me, Edy being a good leader, Greg being a good leader, there's not this general sense that we can put a label on it. Really, you're the makeup of all of the different individuals that you lead, including yourself. And individual number one, individual number two being your spouse, number 3, 4, 5, the kids, your family, your team. But I'm just honestly, I think you would get like, hopefully not a lot of different opinions, but I think there's probably 2 or 3 different opinions of what kind of leader I am, because we do tend to support and challenge differently in each space. So move that out to the family. I might liberate my son, dominate my one twin daughter, and protect my other one, and I abdicate my foster daughter, right? Because I think my wife's got it covered, right? With the team, I've been told recently, hey, you're really liberating her, but you're really abdicating her. And I'm like, oh man, I was like, so you're saying it's not a destination, it's like a daily Polaroid snapshot.
Interesting.
And all of a sudden I'm like, I got work to do every day. Right? So it's in flux. There's an overall intent, but I'm bringing support and challenge to self, to family, to team, to organization. But really, I'm doing that to the individuals in that space, right? I would love you have siblings?
Yeah.
Brothers, sisters?
Brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you could look at your brother just as a way to filter it and go, when's the last time that I brought support or challenge? To the degree that you bring support and challenge is to the degree that you actually build trust out in that relationship, right? Many feelers think, if I can just bring more support, they'll trust me more. And that's not true. Sometimes the feelers need to bring challenge, and you actually establish more trust by bringing challenge. Sometimes the thinkers need to bring more support because they think by bringing more truth, they're going to get more trust. And that's not true, right? Sometimes the thinker really needs to bring more support, and so it balances them out so that they're bringing support and challenge to an individual. So culture is essentially the air you're breathing between me and me, right? Or between you and me, the culture that we breathe of how we're leading one another, of how we're supporting and challenging one another. It's honestly like home base for us for everything that we do is the support challenge matrix.
Yeah, the foundation. And it takes me into the next thought about building trust. Is it given or earned, internally and externally? And I think I'm the type that gives more challenge, and I feel like if I give more challenge, they'll trust me more. But then they feel a lack of support. So that's the way I'm trying to build trust. And maybe they trust me, maybe they don't on my team. But the people that I found that thrive, they trust me more as I give them more challenges because they feel I trust them more, and I'm willing to open up more lenses of opportunity to them. But the burnout comes in when I'm not giving them the support that they don't even know they need, but then they start to feel it and they're like, wow, I actually need more time with Greg versus more challenge. So
what's your question? And I have a question for you as we're talking through it. I sense how the awareness, right? Of, again, people don't know the support that they need. And it's maybe it's a comment. It's just going, man, it's our responsibility, right? Let me bring you some challenge. It's your responsibility to know what kind of support and challenge they need. What happens on high performing teams, let's say the SEALs or in professional teams, or I don't know if you ever watch Hard Knocks or All or Nothing.
Yeah.
When I watch those shows, I see a whole bunch of support. And I think we think it's the NFL, people go hard, right? It's the Eagles and we're having drinks at the B-dubs and we get lost in the whole cultural experience. But no. At the Eagles level, or, you know what I mean? I think they did the Bills this year. As the Bills level, I'm watching these guys spend a whole bunch of time together going, hey, you should come drag racing with me. Hey, let's go out to eat. You know what I mean? Oh, it's Buffalo Joe. Let's have this. And family is supporting. There's this incredible support network and a lot of support and love moments, right? Of people fighting for one another's highest good. And it is not as much challenge. The challenge is on the field so much to perform that a lot of work off field is clarity, some truth, and then a lot of time of support. Just seeing the balance, right? And the leaders know that that's needed. Otherwise, the guys will mentally or physically break through the season. And even with all that support and challenge, most teams are operating at a low percentage performance of healthy guys by the end of the season, right? People are beat up. So with all that said is, the challenge, I think for me, I'll use both of us on the chopping block is we have to know what our people need support and challenge wise. Even when we see high performers being able to attack, things really well, we still need to go, hey, what kind of support and challenge do they need from me today? It's sort of a weekly, daily, monthly, quarterly question that we need to be asking ourselves.
Yeah, it's a continual, I think it's a continual curiosity. Mm-hmm. It's not a destination. I think a lot of us like that clean cut destination. Like I made it here. Yes. I'm clear. And
yes. What did we say earlier? Mystery, right? Yeah, A connected mindset has mystery attached to it where we're not, it's the journey that we're on. Mm-hmm. I have a tool that I created a while back, which is just called the plot and the subplot. And it's just my own language around going, we're on the Connected Mindset podcast today, but the subplot is I have a new friend. You know what I mean? I can go, grab a cup of coffee or a beer or whatever and be like, let's volley on some of this stuff. Mm-hmm. And, you know what I mean? We have some of the ideal clients are the same. And so why don't we talk through that? So there's often this reason why we're doing things. It's the subplot and the thing that we're doing, the what versus the why. Yeah. Right. And I often, if we get lost in the weeds, I often will stop with a leader and go, hey, can you tell me why you work at this group? Why do you work at this company? And they're like, to make money, to build buildings. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I was like, that's the what. I was like, why do you work there? I was like, that's an amazing what. I was like, you have some of the most beautiful buildings around here. But why do you work there? And when you get to the subplot or the core of why, there's a lot of gold there, right? Mm-hmm. Almost like we're gift giving. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I love the gift giving. I think that it's important for everybody to find that thing for them is, what's at the root. But going back to the trust piece, because I know you talk about building trust, and I know when trust has been broken in the organization, it's the invisible currency. It's something that people feel, but they can't put sometimes context to. Yes. When you think about either starting to build trust with a new team member, new person, new family member, or repairing trust, what does that look and feel like to you?
It's a good creative question. Which one do you want me to answer first?
I think repairing. I think a lot of people, you go through different situations where you want to repair.
Yes.
But it's almost like you're speaking two different languages.
Yeah, absolutely. So usually there's some degree of dignity or some degree of agreement or some degree of promise that has been violated or broken. And that leads to this expectations, whether spoken or unspoken, were unmet. And often I'm experiencing this real time. This is a real thing for most of us is how do I reestablish trust? And I think the question, and I said this to you about our Henry Cloud, right? It's just that he has this moment where he defines relationships and how he has these necessary endings that sometimes have to happen. And he's like, there are wise people, there are foolish people, and there are evil people. And he goes, with wise people, let's say you and I are in a relationship and we're beefing. Then with wise people, I have to go with Greg. I was like, I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to tell you everything. We're going to volley, right? And we're going to figure it out because you're wise. But I have to identify that you're wise. If you're foolish, and I would just tell you the positives only. Like we're breaking relationship, or I write a final letter with the positives, thanking you, and then closing up shop, right? And then with evil people, I give you no more fodder for anything. You know what I mean? Like I just run, right? I just go a different direction. I say nothing. So everything, the positive or nothing, right? And it's really important what did you say earlier? You're like, it's very situational, right? It's really specific. And so without knowing which one of those three, you know what I mean? All we can do is just kind of go to the theory or general, which is, what kind of situation are we in? Sometimes I've been in relationships where there's a mixture between foolish, let's just say foolish, but the relationship was irreparable. Like I tried my hardest, and there are times when people don't want to repair. But as it pertains to me, right, it is important that I make good or I make peace. And so being able to continue to figure that out is really important. Forgiveness plays a huge part, right? In a connected worldview or a separation worldview, you have to learn to forgive. So if I'm holding on, if I'm the one holding on to that unforgiveness, man, this is my responsibility. Pho Tutu and Desmond Tutu wrote a book called The Book of Forgiving. Bro, Desmond, through all of the apartheid in South Africa, he is a key player with Nelson Mandela in seeing this cultural healing happen. But Pho, so that's macro. But Pho, somebody pulled her out of her window and raped her right outside of her house. So they write this book about forgiving. And at one point, Pho is like, forgiveness is a gift that you give yourself. It's not even about somebody else. It's just a gift that you give yourself to lay down that rock, to lay down that weight. And so for most of us, even if we're not believers, we pray this prayer of forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. I think that if we hold on to any unforgiveness, ultimately, this is the greatest step or the greatest barrier to any personal growth that we're going to actually have in our life. I do these leadership intensives. They're about 3 hours. The first session is about 3 hours long. That covers nurture, which is your story. And at the very end of that, right, I'm sorry to spoil it for you guys if we end up working together, right? But like at the very end of that time, of that 3 hour period, I ask you, is there somebody that you need to thank? And man, how many people are there that allow you to be sitting where you're at right now? And who do you need to forgive? Right. And if I'm at about 2 hours and 30 minutes into it, I need to ask that question with about 30 minutes left, because this can be, one of the most profound moments. And if this is kind of the one thing from today is what does it look like for you to actually experience forgiveness as you surrender, right? This is probably the most important thing for our organization, as you surrender, right, that pain, as you surrender that abuse, if you surrender that neglect, that rejection, right? As you surrender that, it can be one of the most transformational things that ever happens. We define surrender as discovering God's will for every situation and bending every effort in that direction. Kind of like the revolution guy that was on here, right? Right. For me, I want to be the surrender guy, right? As a way to. It's one of the greatest gifts that we can ever receive, that Jesus wants to give us, is that we would go, I surrender my kids, which means all I'm looking for is for his will, and I'm going to do everything to do that. Or I surrender this company, and I'm saying, hey, you got to partner with me so that there's a greater level of insight here and clarity and favor, because otherwise it's not moving. Right? That you would actually melt hearts, that you would change people's minds, right? That there would be transformed minds and hearts here. And so one of our guys that works with us right now, he says we need to learn to surrender to the process. And so in some ways it's the journey and it's a destination. But it's both, as we learn to lean in. So
yeah, I love the thanking and forgiving. I think oftentimes we think one or the other. One of the things I pray about often is, God, please forgive my enemies, or the people I feel have gone against me, because they need you now more than ever. And that's both, I think, thanking those people that you need to forgive. And sometimes we think when it's one or the other, but those lessons make us who we are. They make us better. At the end of the day. I love the surrender piece. You're the surrender guy. Before we get to the final question, where can folks find you, connect with you, engage with you?
Yeah, surrendernetwork.com. works. Edy at surrendernetwork.com, EDY. And then, I mean, you can have my number, 757-692-7300. Like,
Nice.
I'm honestly, this is a season for me of being near and clear.
Yeah.
I feel like as I surrendered 2025, 2026, one of the things that we keep working with our companies is that a lot of guys come in and they become really great technicians. They have hands-on tools. They have hands-on the tools. They're great technicians, and the greatest technician, let's say the best welder, the best project manager, the best admin, they rise to be the leader of all the other people, right? But the tendency the tendency that they tend to have is that they'll take their hands off the tools and they will manage with their hands off the tools. And what we say is, no. It is in this season that we want you to be the best, one of the best performers, and teach people how to do their job. We need people's hands on the tools. Mm-hmm. I think people take their hands off the tools too soon as they learn to become leaders or first-time leaders. And the reality is that if you're doing the job of being a developer, a people developer, you never really quite take your hands off the tools. There's always even moments where you still jump back on the gun, or you've learned to develop in the season where you still have hands on the tools. You develop people so well that they do it as good, if not better than you. And then those people develop people, but your hands have to stay on the tools. Mm-hmm. And this has been a season right now that I'm in where I'm like, hey, my hands are on the tools. We have this new group of people, Darian, Emily, Clark, Etzel, Nicole, they are, and even some guys on the wings who are coming in to really, they're sharp. And as we partner together to do this work, my hands are on the tools, which means that we are near to each other, mm-hmm. but then we're really clear on the support and challenge that is coming up, right? I'm not far away from it. I'm not managing contracts. I really feel like I'm supposed to be near and clear. And so, you can find me in those areas or the spaces. And one of the things that we want to do is we want to offer just anybody who's watching a free culture seminar, right? So creating a healthy culture seminar, we come in for 90 minutes. We usually speak to a people group or or executives. And for 90 minutes, we explain support and challenge, mm-hmm. and what the greenhouses, let's say you and I work at Inc. 500, and I show up to a greenhouse, and you work for a different leader, and you show up to a greenhouse. My greenhouse might be thriving. I have a liberator who's supporting and challenging me, who wants my best, and then you show up for a guy who has a false identity, who's not good enough, who dominates you, and your greenhouse is gray and the air is musty, And so every day, this is the story of everybody going to the workplace every day. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that we create a healthy culture on every team and every organization in Hampton Roads.
I love it. I love the mission. I love what you're up to. I admire the clarity, the near and clear, mm-hmm. That you're bringing to the world.
Clarity, bro.
A lot of our audience is going through transitioning out of athletes, transitioning out of the military, transitioning in their business. With all of the information and tools that you have access to, what would you tell them, 2 or 3 things that they should do through transition that will allow them to be more near and clear?
Yes. All right. 1 symptom and 1 root one, right? Yeah. All right. So symptom, everybody does this one, right? I want you to write down, what am I trying to prove? What am I trying to lose? Or why do I not want to lose? And what am I trying to hide? If you sit down with that and you realize your self-preservations, and you work on those before going into your next meeting, into your next interview, whatever, right? It is really important that you realize that self-preservations are so evident. You can sense those, right? And so we want to be able to work on the symptom. It's great. There's a Band-Aid, some Neosporin. It's great. But the root, right, is I'd love for you to ask the question, and Greg had a really good alternative way of saying it, which is, what does the world need me to be? I think that's how he said it. I would say it as, Jesus, who do you say that I am? Right. At the very, there's a moment where he's talking to this woman who's trying to grab water in the middle of the day. And he looks at her, and in this moment, I don't think he was being whimsical or accidental. I think he was being very intentional. But he said, "Blessed are those who worship in spirit and in truth." And the lady literally drops her can and runs back into town. And I imagine that in her run, she's like, "I am the one who worships in spirit and in truth." Everything about her life said that it didn't. Everything about her life was rejected, and obviously rejected because she wasn't grabbing water in the morning, early in the morning, like everybody else. And yet she was told by her teacher that she is, a worshiper of spirit and in truth. For me, I learned that I am a gift giver, right? And so really important that we learn to go, hey, what does it look like for us to receive our identity, right? And to operate out of a connected worldview and a connected mindset.
Edy Herrera, thanks for being connected.
Well, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you so much for listening. If you're feeling more connected from this episode, please like, subscribe, and share with someone that you care about. And I'll see you on the next episode of the Connected Mindset Podcast.